Marcus Greene had almost convinced himself that high school was nothing more than a bad dream, an ugly blur of hallways filled with laughter that never included him. But memories have sharp edges, and they cut deepest when you least expect them. Even 5 years later, he could still hear the echoes. Dollar store Marcus. Hey loser, where'd you get those shoes, Goodwill? Careful, don't sit next to him, he might make you weird too. He had been different, yes. Quiet. Shy. The kind of kid who preferred the back of the classroom where no one noticed him. His notebooks weren't filled with doodles of cars or lyrics to pop songs like the others, but with half-baked sketches of apps, charts of imaginary companies, business models copied from the books he managed to borrow from the public library. At 15, while his classmates were scrolling Instagram, Marcus was studying Warren Buffett quotes, or writing out algorithms he barely understood but desperately wanted to master. But none of that mattered at Crestwood High. Vision wasn't currency there, swagger was. And Marcus had none. His sneakers had holes, his hoodie was faded, his phone was 3 generations old, and his family lived in a cramped apartment across town. That was all the excuse his classmates needed. The cruelest voices belonged to the same people everyone else admired. Brooke Whitmore, the untouchable queen bee with designer heels and a sharp tongue. She once laughed so hard at Marcus's thrift store prom suit that she posted a picture online captioned, "Who let the janitor in?" Chase Coleman, the charming fraud, forever bragging about fake startups he claimed to be launching. Nobody ever saw results, but everyone still treated him like the next Zuckerberg. Everyone except Marcus, who quietly recognized every lie. Tyler Jennings, the self-proclaimed comedian who made Marcus his favorite punchline. At assemblies, on the football field, in group chats, Tyler could reduce the whole room to laughter at Marcus's expense. Marcus survived those years by shrinking himself, walking faster, speaking less, hoping that invisibility might be a shield. But humiliation had a way of finding him anyway. Graduation day should have been an escape. Instead, Tyler had managed one last cruel joke, hijacking the microphone before diplomas were handed out to shout. Shout out to Marcus Greene, future billionaire in Monopoly money. The auditorium roared. Marcus sat frozen, heat burning behind his eyes, wishing the ground would swallow him whole. That night, as others celebrated at parties, Marcus walked home under the flickering streetlights and made himself a silent promise. One day, they'll see me, not for what I wear, not for where I live, but for what I build. He never said it out loud. He just worked. The years that followed were brutal. 2 jobs to keep the lights on, coding lessons stolen from free YouTube tutorials, business experiments that collapsed before they started. He failed, and failed again. But with every failure, he learned. With every small win, he reinvested. And slowly, the pieces started to align. By the time Marcus turned 23, the world that had once ignored him had begun to notice. Investors reached out. Startups begged for his input. Contracts with 6 zeros became signatures on his desk. He built apps that spread like wildfire, sold them at the right moment, and reinvested every dollar with ruthless focus. By 25, Marcus Greene had gone from dollar store Marcus to a man quietly worth more than $100 million. But Crestwood High knew none of it. Which is why, when Marcus checked his email late one evening and saw the subject line, Crestwood High, 5-year reunion, don't miss it, he froze. At first, he laughed bitterly. Why would he ever go back? Those people had treated him like dirt. The scars might have faded, but the memory of being the outcast would always remain. He hovered over the delete button. And yet, he didn't click. Instead, curiosity pulled him deeper. He opened the invitation and scanned the details. An upscale hotel ballroom, catered dinner, an open bar, a DJ. A night of celebration and reconnection. He scrolled to the RSVP list, and his chest tightened. Brooke, Chase, Tyler. They had all confirmed. Marcus leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling of his sleek downtown loft. The boy they remembered no longer existed. They were expecting the same nobody they had mocked into silence. They had no idea. The thought of their smirks returning, of whispers behind wine glasses, stung him more than he wanted to admit. But then another thought slipped in, clearer, colder. Maybe it's time they see who I've become. Marcus's lips curled into the faintest smile as his hand moved toward the screen. Without hesitation, he clicked accept. The email confirmed, your spot has been reserved. And with that, the countdown began. For the first time in years, Marcus wasn't the one walking into a trap. This time, the stage would be his. The ballroom glowed with warm chandeliers, their light reflecting off polished marble floors and crystal glasses filled with champagne. The organizers had spared no expense. Round tables draped in ivory cloth, a DJ booth in the corner blasting throwback hits from their senior year, a giant banner stretched across the back wall. Welcome back, Crestwood High. Class of 20XX reunion. Former classmates clustered in groups, laughter bubbling as they compared jobs, cars, and engagement rings. For most, it was a night to flaunt how well life had treated them, or at least to pretend it had. Near the center of the room, Brooke Whitmore was in her element. Dressed in a shimmering designer gown, she leaned against the bar with a practiced smirk, her manicured nails wrapped around a martini glass. Every time someone approached, her laughter rang louder than necessary, like she wanted to remind the whole room she still owned it. Across the floor, Chase Coleman held court with a small crowd, spinning yet another story about a disruptive AI company he claimed to be running. His voice rose above the music as he dropped buzzwords: scalable, crypto, IPO, none of which made sense, but all of which drew impressed nods. And on the makeshift stage, Tyler Jennings gripped a microphone. He had somehow convinced the DJ to let him host, and he relished every second. With beer in hand, he cracked jokes about old teachers, recounted embarrassing memories, and made sure his own glory days of football were retold in vivid, exaggerated detail. The air was thick with nostalgia and arrogance. Then, a ripple moved through the crowd. The ballroom doors opened. Marcus Greene stepped inside. He wore the same kind of outfit that had once made him a target: faded hoodie, plain jeans, sneakers that had clearly seen better days. No designer labels, no tailored suit, no attempt to match the glamorous crowd. Heads turned. Smirks spread. Whispers began to dart between tables like sparks on dry grass. Is that Marcus? No way he actually came? Same old loser. Brooke caught sight of him and nearly choked on her drink. She set the glass down and smirked, tilting her head. Well, look who wandered in from the thrift store. Laughter rippled through her group. Marcus didn't flinch. He adjusted his hoodie slightly and walked deeper into the ballroom, his expression calm, almost detached, as though the noise around him barely registered. Inside, his pulse was steady. He had expected this. He had planned for this. Yo, Dollar Store Marcus. Tyler's voice boomed through the microphone. Class reunion means glow up, not glow down. Somebody get this man a wardrobe upgrade. The crowd erupted. Glasses clinked. Someone whistled. Brooke clapped her hands in mock applause. Chase grinned and stepped forward, blocking Marcus's path. Marcus Greene. Long-time man. Still coding in your mom's basement? His friends chuckled, waiting for Marcus to stutter or shrink back like he once would have. But Marcus simply looked at him. His dark eyes held none of the boyish fear they remembered. He nodded once, voice calm. Good to see you too, Chase. The absence of anger unsettled them more than a heated reply ever could. Marcus continued toward an empty table in the back of the room. He sat down alone, quietly pouring himself water, as though he had all the time in the world. It wasn't the reaction they wanted. The bullies didn't crave silence. They craved spectacle. Tyler leaned into the microphone again. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not every day we get a celebrity in the house. Please give a round of applause to Crestwood's very own future janitor. The laughter was crueler this time, sharper, echoing against the ballroom walls. Phones came out, some recording, others snapping pictures. Marcus felt the old sting, memory after memory of nights walking home humiliated. But he exhaled slowly, letting the wave wash over him. He wasn't the same boy anymore. Tonight wasn't about enduring. Tonight was about patience. At the bar, Brooke raised her glass. Come on, Marcus, don't be shy. Tell us what you've been up to. I could use a good laugh. Chase chimed in. Yeah, enlighten us. Still hustling those little app ideas? Or did Google finally hire you to fetch coffee? A spotlight from the DJ booth swung lazily across the floor, pausing just long enough to catch Marcus sitting in shadow. The laughter, the taunts, the smug smiles. It was all building, a storm reaching its peak. And Marcus, calm as ever, took another sip of water. They thought the joke was set, but the real punchline was still waiting. The laughter lingered in the air, sharp and mocking, like knives thrown at a target that couldn't move. Phones flashed, recording clips for Instagram stories. Brooke posed dramatically, pretending to dab her eyes with a napkin as though Marcus's hoodie itself was a comedy show. Chase leaned back with his smug grin, already preparing another empty brag. Tyler twirled the microphone cord like a comedian milking the last laugh. It was all so familiar. The same faces, the same cruelty, the same hunger to see Marcus shrink. Only this time, he didn't. Marcus set down his glass of water with deliberate calm. The sound of it touching the table seemed louder than it should have been, like a gavel calling for order. Slowly, he rose from his chair. His frame wasn't imposing. He wasn't taller or broader than most of them, but his presence shifted something in the room. Conversations hushed. Even Tyler lowered the mic slightly, sensing a change. Marcus stepped forward until he stood beneath the chandelier's light, where everyone could see him. 5 years, he said, his voice steady, carrying across the ballroom without strain. It's been 5 years since I walked these halls with you. 5 years since you laughed when I tripped over my own shoelaces. 5 years since you shoved me into lockers, called me names, treated me like I didn't belong. He paused, letting the silence swell. A few in the crowd shuffled uncomfortably. I remember every joke, every smirk, every whisper when I walked past. And tonight, his eyes flicked to Tyler, then to Brooke, then to Chase. It seems not much has changed. Brooke rolled her eyes, trying to regain control. Oh, please, Marcus. Don't play the victim. It's a reunion. Lighten up. But her voice wavered. Marcus tilted his head, studying her. Then, with the faintest smile, he pulled something from his pocket. A sleek, black key fob, small, but the logo gleamed unmistakably in the chandelier's light. The room froze. It was the emblem of a luxury car brand none of them could afford. He placed it on the nearest table, the metallic click echoing in the silence. I drove here tonight, Marcus continued softly, in a car that cost more than most of your mortgages. But that's not the part that matters. A ripple of whispers swept through the crowd. Tyler forced a laugh into the microphone, though it cracked at the edges. Yeah, right. Probably rented it for the night. Nice try, Greene. Marcus ignored him. His calm expression never faltered. I spent those 5 years building something you all said I couldn't. I worked nights when you partied. I coded while you slept. I studied when you mocked. And now, he reached into his backpack, pulling out a slim laptop. The company you thought was a basement hobby is worth $100 million. The words landed like a bomb. The ballroom went silent. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning. Marcus tapped a key, and the screen lit up with financial articles, screenshots of headlines, magazine covers, all bearing his face and company's logo. Forbes, TechCrunch, Bloomberg. Chase's grin slipped first. His startup stories suddenly felt paper-thin. He stared at the screen as though it were a mirror exposing every lie. Brooke's glass trembled slightly in her hand. She scanned the headlines, her smirk dissolving, replaced by something tight and bitter. Tyler stood frozen on stage, microphone slack in his hand. The laughter that had fueled him all evening had dried up, leaving only a hollow silence. Marcus closed the laptop with quiet finality. You wanted a joke tonight, he said, voice steady, eyes sweeping the room. Here it is, the kid you mocked, the loser you invited to laugh at. He's the one who made it. And all your arrogance, all your cruelty, it bought you nothing. While I built everything. No one spoke. No one dared. Marcus picked up his key fob, slipped the laptop back into his bag, and adjusted his hoodie. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't gloat. He didn't need to. The truth had already stripped them bare. He walked toward the ballroom doors, each step echoing in the silence they had once filled with laughter. Some heads turned away in shame, others stared, frozen. Just before he reached the exit, Marcus paused. He glanced back, his eyes calm, almost pitying. 5 years ago, he said quietly, I thought I needed your approval. Tonight, I realized I never did. And with that, he stepped out into the night. The chandelier light behind him dimmed into the distance, leaving a room full of arrogant classmates choking on their own silence.